What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the show. I am super stoked for today's episode. Today, we are bringing back another podcast, another artist interview. Today, we have the chance to have a conversation with a good friend and an artist who I've gotten to know over the last few years, a fantastic glass artist, one of the best in the business, Matt A. So with that, welcome to the episode. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe, and let's get it started. All right, guys, welcome to the podcast. Matt, what is going on? Welcome to the channel.
Hey, thanks for having me, Sam. Appreciate you.
Oh, of course, man. Good to see you. I know it's been a while. We haven't seen each other in person in a minute, so I'm glad we're getting the chance to do this podcast over Zoom.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, man.
Of course. So I guess let's get started with the conversation. Obviously, for those who don't know, and I'm going to throw all of Matt's information on the screen below, but this is Matt A. He is one of the best glass artists in the country. He makes some absolutely stunning, beautiful pieces. We're kind of going to go over some of that later in today's conversation, but really, let's get started just talking about your art journey. When you were younger, when did you first start, I guess, getting like the art bug? When did you start really paying attention to different types of art? And really, what was that kind of early inspiration for you?
Yeah, so my earliest introduction to art was from my dad, actually. My dad, was born and raised in the Philippines. I don't really know exactly what all went down there when he was younger, but what I do know is when I was a kid, he would draw cartoons, and he would like do face painting for different like fundraisers, like with my mom's work and stuff like that. So I'd always seen him drawing cartoons. I remember like old Bart Simpsons that were like, they were like bodega like drawings of like Bart Simpson. It like looked like Bart, but it wasn't Bart. It was hilarious. But so earliest stuff was seeing my dad do it, and then also I have two older brothers that were both pretty creative. My brother Andrew, he was in theater and also a creative himself. He would draw stuff, and I would see him drawing like wizards and random stuff, and then I have another brother who plays music, and so between my dad and my brothers and like cousins that would like do like anime sketches of like like Street Fighter, like Ryu. I remember one of the texts was like putting baby oil on a fucking sheet of paper so you could like see through it, and then you would put it on top of the drawing and then like outline it. So my earliest intro to art was like pretty much through my family, which is pretty cool.
That is super cool. And honestly, same to me. I mean, the piece behind me is by my father. So I think when you have that kind of like in the family introduction, it's pretty neat. So like when you were, let's say like 16, 17, like when people are normally getting ready to like go off to college, were you also in that same mode, or were you already focused on really deciding like, hey, I'm going to pursue art and I'm going to like, I'm going to be an artist of some sort, whether you had found glass at that point or not? Kind of what was your kind of mindset at that point?
Good question. So when I was 15, I first started smoking weed, and it was because I'm gonna throw him under the bus, but it was my I caught him smoking weed, and he he was just like, "Yep, this is something I do, and it's like totally normal. Like, I'm a good kid in school. Like, I'm getting good grades. I skateboard with my friends and do some like, uh, not hood rat shit, but skater boy stuff. Just
Or
like,
normal teenager stuff.
yeah, getting into the normal teenage shenanigans and getting a little high too here and there. But he got me my first pipe, and I was like 16, and it was from this place called Clown Glass, which was a local head shop, or it still is a local head shop in Minneapolis. And back then, the original owner really prided himself because all of the glass in his store was made in studio. So he had about a dozen employees that were doing production glass work, like inside out work, wrap and rake stuff, making rubber grommet tubes. And
I guess let's pause there. You grew up in Minneapolis, right? That's where you're from, and that's where you still live, right? I mean, you've kind of stayed true to those roots.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I was born in California, but I moved to the Twin Cities when I was like 12 years old. My mom's from here. My mom and my dad met here in Minnesota. My dad was working for Northwest Airlines, which eventually turned into Delta. He just retired a couple of years ago, but they met at a disco, and yeah, that it's history from there.
The rest. So kind of like, so when you were graduating high school, kind of what was your mindset? Were you thinking, hey, I'm gonna go pursue art, or hey, I'm gonna go study art at college, or I'm gonna go, become a accountant, and then art came later? Like, what was I guess what was your plan kind of when you were finishing up high school?
Yeah, so I was definitely into smoking weed, playing frisbee golf, music. I played drums in high school in a few different bands and with my brother. And basically, I'd go to a bunch of shows. I was really into drawing. That was like my daily thing in high school, was to always be sketching on the side of like, taking notes or whatever, and just passing stuff between friends. Um, so I didn't know what I really wanted to do in high school, to be honest, or in college. But my dad wanted me to go, and he actually pulled me to the tech college, North Hennepin Community and Technical College, and he was like, "You're gonna do CNC stuff." And I have a history of being terrible at math, so I've been working on it, but at that time, I was like definitely not into math, and so basically, I was at the point of signing for my federal student loan. And I'm reading the fine print, and I'm like, "Holy shit, this is like for real serious now. Like, I can't back out." But I'm gonna back out. So I told my dad, he was standing there as I'm doing. I'm like, "Dad, this is not for me. Like, if I'm gonna go to school, I gotta do it for art. I'm just a creative person. I love making stuff. And like, while this is probably a good like career path for someone, it's just not right for me at this time." So I basically just like X'd out of everything and was like, "All right, we gotta go. I'm gonna go sign up at the community college for art classes." So I went to North Hennepin Community College and was taking drawing classes, sculpture, painting, color theory, all the fundamental stuff, and quickly realized like, yep, art is what I want to do. Meanwhile, I'm going to concerts, going to music festivals, making friends like through the music scene, and I would basically go to head shops, and I signed up for a school that was right around the corner from Clown called MCAD, Minneapolis College of Art and Design. And I was just starting there my first semester, and I'd go into Clown every day. I saw a sign on their window hiring glassblowers, and I was like, how do you even like begin to do that? And I'm like sitting there looking at it, kind of scratching my head, and the manager, Dan Gavin, really nice guy, was like, "Dude, like, we'll teach you everything. Like, just fill out a resume and like hand it in, and we'll maybe call you." And I was like, "All right, cool." So did that, and it was just like synchronicity after that, actually, because I was like, I mean, I love glass. So like inside out stuff, just like looking at it, the depth of everything, and the fume work was just like insane to me. I had no idea how to even like make something. So with the opportunity to make glass as a living, I pulled out all stops. I went online. I was like, how do I like just show some like gratitude for like the possibility? So I get a call, and they say, "Hey, we want to interview you." I go in, do the interview. I feel like I did pretty good. Read somewhere online, write a thank you letter. And so I was like, "Okay, sweet. I'm going to write a thank you letter." Handwritten a nice little thank you letter, brought it to the store, gave it to them. They said, "All right, we'll give it to the guys at the studio." And fucking like that night, I was going out to a show at the Caboose. And sure enough, as I'm walking in, this dude's coming out, and it was the guy that interviewed me, Tom. And Tom's like, "Hey, what's up, Matt?" And I'm like, "Dude, Tom, like, this is crazy. I just put in a fucking letter to you. Like, thank you so much for the interview." He's like, "Dude, no one's ever done that before. Like, we're going to be calling you soon." And I was like, "Okay, cool." And I'm just like baked. I don't even know I didn't like, I thought maybe, oh, maybe he'll call me. Maybe he won't. We'll see. And later that year, it was in winter. And then on New Year's Eve, 2007 to 2008, I'm in Chicago with some buddies, and then I get the text like, "Hey, we're gonna have you come by the studio, check things out, and give you a shot at blowing glass." So
So you were like what, 20 at that time? 21? How old?
I was 18.
18, 6. So you got started with glass like right away, like right when everybody's freshman in college, you're starting your glass career.
Yep, exactly. So I was actually like about a year behind in age of everyone else in my class. So when I graduated, I was like, just turned 18. And yeah, I got really lucky. Just like my brain was just a sponge at that time. So when I got the opportunity, I mean, I just remember walking in that studio and just seeing all these torches and pulled points on benches and color rods and people with these crazy glasses on and flames everywhere. And dude, it was just like walking into like what I imagine what a UFO would be like, just alien shit around you. And it's like, what the fuck is this? All right, I need to absorb this and take it all in and like really be cool, and not fuck it up.
Long, I guess. So when you started at that local studio, how long were you kind of like, I guess, one of their in-house glass blowers? As you kind of like, because I'm sure you kind of made production stuff for the shop, like
Yeah.
spoons and just all kinds of stuff. So like, how long did you kind of take to learn the kind of, I guess, entry level steps to glass blowing, and then when did you kind of expand from there?
So what was interesting was they hired you in pairs. So when I got brought in, they also brought in another dude. And it wasn't said, but it was kind of implied, like you're kind of competing for a position here. So the goal was to push a mushroom marble and like make a bunch of them for other glass blowers to take them and put them onto a pipe. And so my focus was just make it as nice as possible. And then as things started to like, as I got a little better and I like had it under wraps, I just started pounding them out. And so they actually put me through the gauntlet like 2 or 3 times and like had three different people come in and kind of go head to head with me and just make sure I wasn't like a hothead or someone that was like, I mean, competitive in my own way, but also just like focused on making cool stuff. And like Clown back in the day in the Twin Cities had like the highest repertoire of like quality glass in the cities and in like the Midwest, to be honest. Like you'd go to their showroom, they'd throw pipes on the floor and maybe randomly one would break, but like if it broke, then they're like, cool, like that's the one you weren't going to get because that one wasn't good enough for it to go out. So they had me do the mushroom thing, and then I was like I was decorating pipes and then finishing them, and then eventually they teach me how to like just pull points and make like a chillum, and then how to make 2 chillums on one, and then how to make a spoon, and then wrap and rake spoons, and then inside out chillums, inside out spoons,
You got
Sherlock.
like a full education, like step by step of like every kind of style of kind of pipe and like just everything that was common to be in basically every shop across the country.
Yeah, like basically $100 and under, I was so fortunate to have that opportunity because I was learning on someone else's dime, but yet they were still paying me. So simultaneously I'm going to art school, realizing that like, holy shit, like I'm paying to go to school, but like meanwhile I'm like working this job that is paying me to learn and I'm like loving it. I'm like digging into glasspipes.org, learning about like Buck and Scott Deppie and Micah Evans and all these great artists, and I'm just like, what the fuck is this? Like there's this whole other world that I had no idea about. And because my dad worked for the airlines, like I would like fly around, and I went to like the second DFO, I think it was 2009, and met a bunch of really cool people out there, and that's a whole other story that like projected me way further down the glass rabbit hole. But going back to your question, yeah, I like grinded out for 2.5 years there, and then I went out to the DFO, and then that's when I got the job offer for Swiss Perk, meeting Nate Dizzle and at the time his assistant production guy named Adam Rosenfeld, who I had a great time talking to while at DFO, and he kind of like was like, you might be the right fit for us. But yeah, I also ran into JD Mabel's den out there. He was the one I made this pendant, and JD walks by me and he goes, dude, that's a fucking sick pendant. And I was like, thanks, man. And he goes, my name's JD. Who are you? And I'm like, I'm Matt. And he goes, did you make that? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, that's fucking crazy. He's like, come here. Let me like introduce you to this dude, And like, I met Nate Dizzle and then Dosh.
I've
Crazy
known
enough.
I've known JD for many years. JD is a good friend of mine and mutual friend of both of ours, and he's just He's just the man. So it's funny that like we'll have to kind of talk later in the podcast, but there's a lot of mutual artists and a lot of friends that we both know that put out awesome work, and it's awesome to hear that so early in your career he like was like, yo, that pendant is sick, and then it kind of just like developed into like a whole separate wave because like, you know, JD's fume work and obviously like the style that he's developed with his wormholes and stuff like that. So it just all kind of layers on top of each other, you know.
It absolutely does, man. It's a small world, and you know, I feel blessed that I got in when I got in because it was still so small. Like DFO was at Cornerstone, you know, maybe a few hundred people were there at tops. And it all kind of existed within Cornerstone and just the building and then like the side kind of like alleyways of the building. And there was a few vendors set up there, but it was like pretty quiet. And it was just like crazy shit happening, like big pieces, banjo with this giant female figure with these like crazy like polar bear looking boots, and like it was just wild. Sheen blowing out these discs the size of your fucking head, you know. And it was, oh, man, it was so crazy. And I don't know if we'll ever see or feel that like small of a scene like again in the glass world. Like things have gotten so big.
Right around that point was like pre social media and also just pre like main legalization in like a lot of markets. I mean, I think in 2009, I think California was probably like the only place in the country that had like medical legalized. And then between 2009 to 2015, you know, that 5 or 6 year window, everything kind of just ballooned and exploded in awareness, popularity, pricing, kind of everything. So kind of speaking of where you came from with like the story from DFO and Swiss Perk, what are your recent plans now? Because obviously now, and I'll pop up on the screen here during our interview in the edit some of your current pieces and also some of the pieces that I photographed for you in the past as well. So I guess what took you from that Swiss Perk kind of era, that production era? Because obviously Swiss Perk is a major up from like your local shop, even if the local shop is the shop. So then what took you kind of from Swiss Perk to now, the pieces that you make now, the bottles, your clouds, the different styles that you've developed, your fume work. So what kind of got you to this point?
Good question. I think I need to like lay out a little bit of groundwork before I get there because when I was at Swiss Perk, I was pretty much under the wing of Nate Dizzle, and Nate, um, in a lot of ways, did a lot of good for me because first of all, he took me out of my like bubble of like Twin Cities. I thought I kind of knew everything here, and I realized that, and upon when he said, hey, like you could come here, it's going to be a big change, you're going to learn a lot of new things. And it was like these large scale clear scientific style pieces, and when he brought me out there, I didn't know how to do any of that shit. So I
Swiss
remember,
Perk, that's up in Washington, right?
yeah, currently yeah, it's not right now, it's in North Carolina, but it started in Seattle. And Dizzle had this studio on a dock underneath the Ballard Bridge. It was amazing. Like it looked like Deadliest Catch outside the windows. There's like crab pots and fishermen and shit, like all fucking day long. It was really cool. But
I'm
I
sick.
remember,
A lot of studios.
yeah,
Sounds
I
cool.
remember though, like just the scale of these fucking things were big. Like, I mean, I can't remember exactly the length, but I mean, we're talking 14 plus inches. And it was all like the bubbles that you would blow out. It was like 50 by 7, so thick ass tubing, big on a 16 mil blow tube, and you'd put it in the flame and just try to heat the whole thing evenly, and then you blow out a giant bubble, and then you smash it with this paddle. And to do it cleanly and evenly was a challenge. And again, this was all new techniques to me. I was some weak kid from the Twin Cities with like no forearm strength, and like going there and like basically getting reps in because I had to, it was my job. And I was like kind of frustrated. And like I remember Dizzle saying like, hey man, like, and it's funny because like GoPros were a thing. And so he was wearing a GoPro like on his like chest or on his head, and he's like talking to me, rolling a blunt as Dizzle does. And he's like, at some point you just got to believe in yourself that you can do it. And I was like, okay. And it's funny because I remember like a couple of years later, I was like going through the studio like pictures, looking for pictures, and I found that video, and I wish I had it. Dizzle probably still has it. I'd love it if he like sent it to me. But that was a big pivotal point for me, was to believe that I could do things differently and that I could like excel and make bigger shit, because I came from, this is what you do, this is what you got to make, and this is it, you know. And so to have these early experiences, like having like Ease right next to me pulling out this crazy fume work, and he taught me a shit ton about fume. Voorhees right across the table from me, sculpting stuff, also fuming, just with crazy tech. Dosher as well, crazy fuming, and just an expansive mind on just like life in general. You know, these and then visiting artists like Jake C, D-Rack, Slinger. I mean, a whole bunch of people came through there, and I had no idea who the fuck any of these people were. I just was like, you guys are Nate's friends, like we're making work. I got to a point where, you know, I was helping him assemble some of the collabs and stuff, so I got to work with some of these artists, and it was just like, it was crazy. So I had a point there that I realized, okay, like I'm this fucking dude now and I have to do it, and like I gotta perform. So from there, because I was so good at absorbing stuff, I kind of like was like, not intentionally, but like, I mean, you could see like in my work like Ease stuff, or you could see some sculpty stuff kind of like Voorhees or whatever.
People you were
And
learning from.
exactly, but it was getting to a point where I knew that like I was like, I didn't want to step on toes, and nobody ever got at me for it there, but I knew I was like towing that line, and I was like just so envious of like people that had something, you know, and with that came their name and their repertoire, and I was like, I really want that for myself.
By something you mean like their own, like, I guess, style within the presence within the community and scene, and I guess specific kind of vision when you look at something, you know who made it, kind of thing.
Right. It was it's a respect. Yeah. Like I wanted to be a respected artist too. Like I wanted those like Matt and, you know, X name collab, you know, whoever it be. And I wanted to, like, when someone looks at it, they say that's Matt. So that came when I met, I mean, I was always a big fanboy of Micah Evans' work. His technique is just immaculate. And he was teaching a residency at Penland Arts and Crafts School in North Carolina. So the first class he did, I didn't get into. I applied, was denied. And then like a year later, 2 years later, I ran into Micah at the Armadillo, or it was like part of Glassroots in Austin, Texas. He was working down at St. Elmo's Fire, Lucan Studio, Salt. And I ran into him there, and my manager from Swissberg, Teresina, was there, and I was like, Teresina, that's Mike Evans. And she's like, you want to meet him? And I was like, would love to. And so I was talking to Mike. I was like, dude, I try to get in your class. He's like, you want to be in the next one? I was like, I would love to. So long story short, I applied for it. He accepted me into the class. It was only like 10 students or something like that that were accepted, and all handpicked by Micah. And Micah was awesome. His curriculum was like basically, hey, like, what do you want in this class? Was the first question. So when I went in, we did one-on-ones. He goes, what's your intention? I was like, dude, I'm sick of seeing I'm sick of seeing remnants of other artists in my own craft. Like, I really want my own voice. And he goes, because I was like, you know, Micah was making bottles, but I came up with flip top. And I mean, basically Micah goes, people used to say I used to be like this other artist or whatever, but basically the way I explain it is like, you have to learn vocabulary in order to speak your own language. So like learning how to talk, essentially. So it's okay that you like borrow from other artists, but it's the way you reassemble it and speak with it that like makes you.
With writing, where like with writing, you can like borrow tidbits from other authors and other sources, but at the end of the day, it has to be your original piece, you know, that stands out for something new.
Precisely, yeah. So so that's what I did. I mean, I had made a flip top bottle at that point. It was just like it basically was like Jesus seals, just like Micah, and then with the fucking flip top. And then
What year are we talking when you made the first flip top?
14,
Okay,
probably.
so 9 years ago, we're coming up on the 10-year anniversary of the bottle.
That's right. That's crazy. You make me feel old, man.
Oh, I just think it means you got to make something special, for the 10-year anniversary of the bottle. I think you just got to make like, I don't know, something like,
Yeah, yeah. I think you're right, man. I like that idea.
I don't think you're
Um,
getting old. I think you're getting more refined.
you're exactly right, man. The bottles have come a long way since then. At the time, I actually called them picnic rigs because my concept was because dabbing was like a new thing. I was used to like going out playing frisbee golf, going to shows, and I'd always have a chillum or like a dry piece, and we're just smoking weed. So like that was the thing. And then now dabs all of a sudden this thing, and I'm like, well, everyone at the time had titanium nails and a fucking giant like Coleman, fucking blowtorch thing. And I was like, and so
Old
with
days.
yeah, like you're limited, right? Like you're at in someone's garage or in their living room, and I'm like, I'm stuck inside and I'm so high and I want to go do stuff, but I can't. So my objective was to bring the rig outdoors, and this is like pre Puffco stuff, and like as I mean, Puffco had the little pens and stuff, but they didn't have like the peak. They didn't have shit dialed in like they have it now. So it was kind of funny because like I tip my hat to Roger, Jolly Roger, for kind of being on the same tip in a different way, in a really cool way. But yeah, basically the idea was to like get out and like see nature, experience stuff.
Be able
So
to like bring the bottle out and close the lid and have it not spill on your
right, right.
backpack or whatever.
Totally, totally. So that was the original concept, and at Micah's class, I actually made the like first few, and they were like, I gave Micah one of my like the first bottle actually, and I think it's in his collection somewhere. It's gonna be crazy to pull it out. Micah, if you're seeing this, definitely send me a picture. I'll just text you about it or whatever. But
I was just gonna say, I think you and I originally got introduced because obviously I've done a lot of work with the guys at Everdream, especially Nate Myers. He's the big bro. I think that's where you and I probably initially met, and I photographed a lot of your work during kind of our interactions and work up at that studio. And your cloud pieces and your fume work have really, I guess, gone to like a whole new level. So I guess talk to us about kind of where the inspiration for that kind of style of fume work, the cloud style of functional pieces, and just kind of where the inspiration for some of your modern, last 2, 3 years, and then going forward, where that kind of inspiration has taken you and where that's headed.
right, right. So the whole main objective was to create something different and new, and really try to push techniques that I've borrowed from the past and putting them somewhere else. So while I was at that residence or the 2 month work study program with Micah at Penland, um, there was a visiting artist, Nancy Callan, who's this lady from Washington, and she worked for Lino, and she's known for doing like cane roll ups, and she has a cloud. And the word on the street was like she was super, well, I don't know, I guess she was hip with the culture. So I was like, hey, like I was just super inspired. I was like, can I make you a cloud? Like if you're down, like I'll trade you like for one of your cups, because she was busting out cups. And so she honored that trade, and that's kind of where the concept of a cloud came. But I mean, I was thinking of it as like clouds, like smoking weed, taking dabs, whatever, you're blowing out clouds. So I borrowed that concept and kind of turned it in my own thing. And another thing, I guess like going a step behind all of this stuff, was when I was in art school, I saw Salvador Dali's lobster phone, and it was in the art museum, and it was just this surreal object. It was a like a rotary phone with a lobster on top. So I actually like looked it up because he had an interesting concept. He said lobster telephone is an unexpected combination of objects. Dali believed bringing them together could reveal secret desires. For him, both lobsters and telephones were connected with sex. This work is a classic example of a surrealist object. Uh, so I think in some way, like that concept kind of like really like was pounded into me, because I was obsessed with like Dali and Picasso and all this stuff. But the bottle, it's like a hydrating item, but it has a secondary function. It's also a bong. So like I don't know, there's a nice play between like staying hydrated or just staying, it's like essential, like water is life, but like weed is like,
Also,
dude.
I think the bottles that you make are super cool because a lot of like, especially when you're like, call let's say it like in college, a lot of people are like making Gatorade bottle pieces and stuff like that. So like as you get older and maybe still continue the recreational enjoyment of cannabis and start to like, make more money for yourself and be able to enjoy different things, a piece like yours is like kind of nostalgic in some ways too, because it's kind of like that old school like kind of bottle that you used to use kind of in in college, but obviously the stuff that you're making now is so refined and just just out of this world that like it's just very very high tech and fine tuned and just what I mean. I mean the levels of what it is compared to like even just your original glass work, let alone obviously something that someone makes out of just plastic, is just completely different. So I think it's a cool way to show just a little homage to like the old school ways of some teenagers and some college kids.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I think of that too. I mean, the originally I was looking at one of those flip top bottles because this like local look dude, I haven't seen him in forever. His name's Ned Ashton. He was selling these cobalt blue glass bottles with a flip top, and then he had a little model on the front. So like I am, and then like at the top was like love and friends and blah blah blah, like all these like nice things that you want to be as a complete human being. And he really believed in the power of water, and like that's like the that Japanese scientist Emoto has that whole concept. So I was really really interested in that, and so I just remember I was like tripping one time playing with it, and I'm like, dude, I just like love this like old function of like industrial glass. So like I gotta make one of these, and I'm like I'll make a bottle, and then I'm like, well, I make pipes, so I should be able to smoke out of this bottle too. And then just things kind of like started to unravel from there. So yeah,
Oh,
that's
that's
the
awesome.
reasons of the bottle. So it's all based on nostalgia.
Oh, that's awesome. And I think that also probably helps keep the fun and continuing to make them as you continue to refine technique and just what you do creatively. So I guess I wanted to ask, before I need to probably upgrade my system to Zoom Pro or whatever. They only give me like 40 minutes of record time. So I don't want to cut a few. I want to make sure we get kind of a few of the last questions in before the interview ends. What do you think in your mind? Because I know you've been in the glass scene for a long time now, and you're one of the top dogs in the industry at this point. What's been, I guess, challenging for you as you kind of have built your career? And then what's also at the same time been the most satisfying or the most rewarding or the most fun for you?
Most challenging is as an artist, like learning to like sell yourself in a way. You get as a creative person, you put all your energy towards just creating, but then at some point, you grow up, you gotta make this a living and a job. So like learning how to like sell your work, how to market it, and more importantly, just how to be I mean, it all falls on this. It's just like being human, being like confident in yourself to like go out, sesh with people, make new friends. Um, yeah, get out and do the dang thing and shake hands,
So like mixing basically the creativity with the sales side, because you can be kind of as creative as you want, but if you don't get out there
Yeah,
and sell anything, then it doesn't matter.
I'm an introvert. So like it wasn't innate for me to go out and try to sell myself. I've had friends in the past kind of like coach me along and really believe in me and help me out with that kind of stuff. And I'm doing a lot more self discovery and searching and as like just within and how to sell myself, and be confident with the work that I make, and yeah, make sure that I put the best foot forward and have the best intentions. The things that I've had the most success with is actually making work that functions well, making sure the piece is like ergonomic, making sure that there's like all the details like actually lend itself to being a well functioning everyday sesh piece, because there's a lot of very talented glass workers out there, but when you like really inspect the pieces, do they actually function that well? Is it the best draw that you could get from a piece? Is it the most efficient? Does it actually do the thing that you intended to do?
And that's
uh,
obviously where you're getting to mix kind of that kind of initial experience doing some of that production and then working for Swiss, which is like one of the most like kind of guess high quality production scientific pieces kind of out there still is. And then combining that with your vision for what you wanted to create as an artist with your own pieces and kind of making sure that the beauty mixes with the function with everything that you make.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I am just looking at a couple notes here. I had some more thoughts on it.
No, I know we've talked about a lot already. So
yeah. I guess like just trying to create something new and different and let it be unique and stand on its own 2 feet.
what are
Um,
your plans? What are your plans? Obviously, we're kind of coming into the fourth quarter of 23. What are your kind of plans for the rest of this year, next year? Excuse me. Do you have any shows kind of lined up for the fall, or kind of what are your plans just kind of with your own bodies of work coming up?
uh, so I'm not trying to plan too far ahead right now. My main focus is just create glass, be present during the process, and having intention with it, and just trying to build a body of work right now. I think when I plan a little too far ahead, that I just can't be present. I'm always thinking about this like end goal. So been reading a lot of Rick Rubin recently, and he's had a lot of impact on the way I've been like thinking about creativity and how to like contribute to art in an authentic way. And basically what I've distilled is just be present with the making process, and don't get too ahead of yourself and thinking, oh, this is what it's going to be like. Just enjoy making the art.
Right.
um
The outcome is going to be what it is. And then you just got to give your, like you said, your present 100% effort to the creation process. And then afterwards, it's kind of just up to the world and, up
ex-
to, just really up to the world and everybody's reaction to it. And just what goes on after you make it is kind of out of your hands. You just focus on the craft.
yeah, there's a quote in his book that I want to read. It's out of the creative act. It's
The
the
creative
object.
act, is that the creative act by Rick Rubin?
Yeah, the creative act, a way of being, it's called. And
Okay,
then
I'll have to check that out.
one of the first quotes is the object isn't to create art, it's to be in that wonderful state which makes art inevitable. So that's the shit I'm on right now.
Just like basically doing your thing, and then the end result of being in that zone, that flow zone almost, is creating the art that you are proud of and that you want to put out to the world.
100%.
So before we wrap up, I always like to end my podcast interviews. Obviously, you're one of the best glass artists in the world. I wanted to get your reaction to a different type of artist. This piece is by a Spanish artist named Cote Escriva, and it's
Wow.
called Creepy Popeye. Basically, he takes characters that are very kind of classic that you would know from just, the 90s, and he turns them into this kind of deconfigured, kind of half skull, half still, kind of, obviously like moving and very active pieces. So before we wrapped up, I wanted to kind of get your reaction on a piece by Cote Escriva.
Cote does an incredible job at getting the figureness of a recognizable icon, Popeye. His motion within the piece is like incredible. Like it looks like that dude's just about to like walk off the screen. I love like I've been loving like the kind of anatomy style pieces where you get to see some of like the bones and stuff. And then the fact that it's grayscale is super cool too, because it's like not super focused on color, trying to grab your attention. Just look at the thing, like look at the cool detail. I love that aspect of that piece in particular.
I love glass art, obviously holds a special place in my heart, but Cote has become my favorite non-glass artist. I mean, his sculpture work and kind of the way he makes classic characters come to life. I actually have to dust it. You're probably going to notice some dust on this in the video, but
Yeah.
uh, really, he just makes pieces come to life in a really interesting way. So I wanted to get your reaction on that. Well, Matt,
I don't think it's intentional, but is that like his heart on his sleeve, or is that like a bone?
it's probably a bone, but it looks like a heart. So
Yeah, well, it kind of works. Popeye wears his heart on his sleeve.
yeah, Matt. Well,
Wears his heart on his sleeve.
yeah, Matt. Well, dude, thank you so much for this interview. Thank you so much for joining the channel. I will throw all of your information. Everybody hit the follow button on Matt's Instagram. Check out some amazing glass work. And Matt, I hope to see you in Colorado soon. Thank you for joining the channel. And also hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you guys enjoyed this episode. See you guys in the next one. Peace.